Smoke alarm keeps going off. I wonder about that. Oh. I thought this morning somehow things had changed when I woke up. I mean, the TV wasn't on. Watching those judge shows that often was what I watch in the morning. And I could hear things. I don't know if my hearing suddenly come back. It was amazing. I sat out on the porch for a few moments, and I could hear cars down on Highway 14 down below the hill, which I couldn't normally hear. I heard a duck. We don't have ducks up here. And then I heard a giant airliner swoosh over the house. I watched it in amazement. And for some reason that you can't explain, it reminded me of a radio announcer here in Portland, Oregon many years ago named Jack Hurd. Great man. The founder of Animal Aid. A man who understood animals. He understood fish, ducks, sea otters, seals. These were his friends. I have a number of stories about Jack. I remember when Jack would come to the house. Jack wasn't one that knocked. Jack was one of those kind of friends that just walked in. Jack came over one morning, and both of my German shepherds, Polyvon and Sean, those were my family back then, they stopped at Jack's feet, and they both bowed. Jack had a special ability with animals, a special love for animals. That's the backstory, and it leads me to this one. Jack lived in a mansion just above the Willamette River, down near the bridge that crosses between Oregon City and, I think it's Oregon City, geography, my worst subject. But anyway, Jack had a frustration because speedboats would come roaring down the Willamette, and duck feathers were going in all directions. Animals were mocking, or whatever they do. The ducks say smock, smock. No, I think they say quack, quack. Oh, well, it's not important. So Jack decided this has to stop. And Jack had a balcony at the back of the house. So he used his great mind to devise a system which involved a cable that would run from one side of the river to the other underneath the water. And when he heard the ducks starting to smock, smock, Jack would crank up the cable and it would rise out of the water, and here comes the speedboat, and whammo! Boat in a million pieces. Jack thought it was a brilliant idea. Unfortunately, back at this time, I do not know if we had a DEQ. I don't think it had been invented yet, but I'm not sure. It's not important. Anyway, it arose quite a furor with his neighbors that didn't like the idea of their water skiing down the river, ducks flying in all directions, and a cable coming out of the water disintegrating their boat. So they told Jack, you cannot do that. There's a law someplace, but you cannot put a cable across the river and sink boats. Jack was highly frustrated. So what did Jack do? Jack went immediately to his radio show on KKEY and explained his dilemma. And here's how he explained it. He said, you know, what happens if in Portland every day a giant thing came and floated in the sky, and every day a rope with a giant hook would emerge from that vehicle or whatever it was, and it would grab people screaming up and throw them in that vehicle, and then it would go away. and those people would never, ever return. And their lives would just be wiped from the planet. All the good things they'd done. He said there would have to come a time. There would have to come a time when people would say, we have to stop this thing from coming and taking away people every day. That was one of the unique qualities of Jack. He thought of animals, fish, salmon, sockeyes, crabs, as people. It's insight into Jack Hurd. He was probably one of the more unique announcers in the city of Portland. My ego wants me to say it was I, but it wasn't I, it was Jack. And one of the greatest honors that was ever bestowed upon me is people thought of me as a protege of Jack Hurd. I was a little different, a little more explosive with politics and things than he. But Jack's main thrust in life was animals and caring about them. We don't do that today, sadly. I watch on YouTube videos that distress me so much that I'm sick for maybe 2 or 3 days after watching them. I recently watched a video of a man using a lance, a spear, and killing a bear that was minding its own business, just walking through the forest, sniffing the grass, checking the flowers, the plants. And he took the spear, and he killed the bear, and he jumped up and down. And thrill it was for him to watch that animal painfully and sadly die before him, and he found it humorous. My God, we people are so different. That upset me for days. He thought it was a joke. You know, Jack's idea about a cable that ran across the river really wasn't all that bad. We must learn that God gave us dominion over animals. What does dominion really mean? It doesn't mean we can kill them and then laugh as they painfully lay there and die. We don't understand the bear's life. We don't understand what he's thinking. We know that the bear was enjoying nature. The bear didn't know about lances. The bear didn't know that humans are so utterly cruel. I watched that program the other night called Zoo. And somehow, to see the animals get their revenge brought me a certain amount of joy. We people are all so different. There are some that kill animals, and there are some that talk to animals. Jack Hurd had it right. I hope that in the future we make the choices that lead us to protecting our environment so we can all live together. Because God has dominion over us, and we must get on our knees every day and thank Him that we take the obligation of dominion the same as He. Because if He were like the guy with the lance, our lives would be a hell of a lot more miserable. If you will excuse me.